Welcome to the first day of the St. Louis Regional FreightWays FreightWeekSTL 2023. I'm Mary Lamey, Executive Vice President of Multimodal Enterprises for Bi-State Development, which includes the St. Louis Regional Freightway as one of its enterprises. We're kicking off FreightWeekSTL with Innovation Day, during which we're featuring some of the emerging technologies that have tremendous potential to impact the movement of freight in the years to come. Our second session of the day, you'll learn about Israeli-based DockTech's digital twin technology and data analysis that creates a virtual representation of the seabed of ports and waterways. The company is providing valuable insight for a variety of maritime stakeholders, delivering greater visibility, predictability, and empowerment, and helping to improve freight movement through the global port system. Before we dive in, we'd like to start with thanking our sponsors. This year's presenting sponsors include the Boeing Center, Washington University, Steadfast City, St. Louis, University of Missouri, St. Louis, Millstone Weber, and Ameren. Our supporting sponsors are the Jerry Costello Group and the Hauser Group. Associate sponsors for this year include Southern Illinois Builders Association, Terracon, Alvarisi, Castle Contracting, HNTB, CDI, and Brinkman Constructors. Our panelist today is Yuri Yoselevich, founder and CEO of DockTech. Welcome, Yuri, and let's start with a quick introduction of your background and your organization.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. My name is Yuri. I'm the CEO and founder of DockTech, and in my background, I was a Navy officer. I had 8 years of experience on board, working with sonars, radars, and everything around navigation equipment on board. After that, I studied computer engineering, and ever since, I'm combining those two passions together. So passion for maritime and passion for technology is something that really gets me going. I founded DockTech with a mission to digitize the world's waterways. And DockTech today is helping ports and terminals take more cargo in a safer way and help them protect the environment of the port as they do that.
That's exciting, Yuri. So what are some of the challenges impacting river and port operations that DockTech is hoping to address?
Yeah, so today, if you look at supply chain, ports in general and river system in particular play a major role in it, which over 90% of the world physical cargo is moving through the gates of the ports and the rivers. And quite frankly, ships are not taking as much cargo as they could. They experience a lot of delays, and they have additional navigation risk that occurs because they are not well familiar with the conditions of the waterway. And the waterways in ports and rivers actually dictates how well the entire supply chain would act. And this lack of visibility that we have through the waterways conditions could be change of tides, change of currents, change of waves, change of sedimentation, which is the lower part. This is actually dictates at the end how much you and I will pay for everything. So this is why it's really important to focus on ports, and inside ports, we're focusing on the waterway side of the ports or rivers, because we believe that that can move the needle the furthest.
So what's your role with dredging resources?
Yeah, so dredging is a major concern for the port. It's the act of removing soil from the bottom of the river, bottom of the port, and making it deeper and safer for navigation. And it can be a big deal. It tens or even more millions of dollars per year being spent on solely keeping the water safe for navigation. And what we are able to do with our digital twin concept is to help the decision makers when they want to plan a dredging campaign or keeping the water deep throughout the year. We can support them in understanding where and when they need to survey and where and when they need to dredge in order to reduce the interruptions that we are doing into the maritime operations. So dredge less, sail more. This is what we're trying to do in the world of dredging.
Okay, so give us a brief overview of your digital twin solution and how it works.
All right, so a digital twin, it's a fancy name of a digital representation of a physical object. Our physical object is the waterway. So anything from the surface to the bottom and everything in between. What you need to do in order to keep the digital twin a high fidelity one, you need to keep data stream from the waterway in some way, updating it. Imagine like in the navigation app you have, like Waze, what you have is some static map with the environment details, like the roads, intersection, etc. And what you really need in order to understand how long is it going to take you to get to work, you need to get data from the cars that says what are the conditions on the roads themselves. And it's no different in our world. In order to understand what we have now in our world is really just a static map. But what we really need, we need to get data from the waterways themselves. How do we do that? We are working with vessels, with sensors that already exist in vessels that are giving us the environmental samplings of the environment of the vessel. So we get a constant feed from sensors that exist on tugs throughout our regions of operations that we can actually understand what is going on and then keep the digital twin a high fidelity one. Now that we have a high fidelity digital twin, we can run simulations, we can understand segmentation, we can understand the changes in real time. And actually this is where AI kicks in. Now that we have so much abundance of data, of observations of the waterway, we can actually look forward and say, hey, what is going to happen here? We can detect trend and say what is going to happen here in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months, or even more. And that is a capability that is yet to exist in the world of waterway operations. So that is fantastic. And that's the only way to get there is through a mimic, a high fidelity mimic or a digital twin of the waterway.
Okay, let's talk about benefits. What are some of the benefits we hope to deliver for ports in the shipping industry through the digital twin?
Yeah, so there are a lot of stakeholders involved in the process of moving cargo, and they all have a humongous responsibility. So what we want to do is we want to help in the critical decision-making points, such as a draft restrictions. So if you're not familiar with draft restriction, draft is how much the vessel sticks into the water. And that actually correlates with the amount of cargo that the vessel has. So when you load, it sinks and get closer to the ground. So on one hand, you want it to be as full as possible, right? But on the other hand, you don't want to be too close to the ground because it's risky. So what we can do with a digital twin is help operation managers in port decide that they can not restrict the draft or even increase the draft, thus allowing vessel to come with more cargo. And what we had done, for example, in another port in Latin America, we were able to prove that for every ship deeper than a certain draft, we were able to have 200 more containers on average. Just with the deployment of we're not even talking about increasing or changing the regulations or anything in the future. So more cargo, that's number one. Number two is safety of navigation. We've seen some maritime accidents recently. We've seen the accident in Suez Canal that got the price of container to go from $2,000 to $20,000 over 8 days. We saw some accidents outside of Baltimore ports, but those are the ones you actually hear about. 99% of the grounding accident you don't even hear about, but we do feel it in our pockets. So safety of navigation, cargo, and dredging, as I mentioned before, this helps us save 10 to 15% of dredging expenses for ports we work with. And that is fantastic because there's a lot of hustle and a lot of downtime for the port that is being saved just because you understand where and when you should do things and how to allocate your resources.
That's fantastic. All right, what stage are you in terms of delivering this product to customers, and who are your customers?
So our current customers are port authorities and terminal operators. This is our focus. We work in North and South America. We have over 25 ports in this region that are currently generating data and using our system. A lot of them are in Brazil. We have multiple ports in Brazil. The way that we operate is I said that we generate data from vessels, and the vessels that we typically choose in ports are tugboats. Besides being probably the most beautiful vessel I know, they're also 80% of their time, they're in transition within the waterways. So what we get is a very good coverage of the waterway with a partnership that we established with the tugboat companies. So that gives us also a wide spread of our footprint in our target market. So North and South America, including Brazil, Colombia, US, and also here in Israel in the port of Ashdod.
So Yuri, what type of response are you receiving from these customers? Like a positive impact?
Yeah, so obviously, otherwise they wouldn't work with us. But I think it's also important to say it's not like, opening up a grocery store when everybody understands you need a grocery store. You just need to figure out how you're going to survive in this market. This is a new service, and we were very fortunate to identify the right ports to work with in the market. And I think it depends, because there's a saying in our world that if you've seen one port, you've seen one port. And that is true, because every port is slightly different. But in general, what we see is that ports that are struggling with constant change and variation in the waterway and in the seabed are highly impacted by it, therefore really see the potential in understanding how to control it, how to plan it in a better way. And obviously places like Barranquilla, which really loses around $8 million a month just because they have a really bad sedimentation over there, and we're trying to help out. Or ports along the Mexican Gulf, which also have a lot of impact by rapid changes of sediments. Those are the places that are kind of our lowest hanging fruit, that can really see the value on day one and can really profit from that. So the feedback is quite well.
Okay, let's talk about the US. What presence do you have in the US, and what are your future plans?
So I'm proud to say that we have a US port, US tugboat company, and a US investor. So we have everything. We're kind of getting our first step into the market. So we are fortunate enough to partner with Seabulk, with a big towage operator in Florida, and they operate in Tampa Bay, port of Tampa Bay. And again, we are fortunate enough to get Cultivation Capital, St. Louis, Missouri, as an investors. They are they have a special geospatial fund which specialize in applications like we develop, and a lot of knowledge that they gain over the years. But there's so that's the current footprint and growing. But in the last couple of weeks, we were engaging the Corps of Engineers. So the Army Corps of Engineers is responsible for the maintenance of the entire US waterway system. That includes rivers and ports and locks and dams and everything included with that. And we are happy to get the interests of the it's called an ERDIC, the Engineer Research and Development Corps. And we are working together to deploy some of our solution on the core vessels. And that will be amazing, because that will be alongside the Mississippi River. With their immense domain expertise, we can make sure that our solution fit the exact needs of all the Mississippi River system operators, such as barge operators or any other liners that work over there. And that is fantastic. And that is a scoop that's brand new. You got the first scoop out. So I'm extremely proud that we got to this point, and I think we'll have a lot ahead of us. So I'm really looking forward to that.
So Yuri, this is really exciting. You're doing tremendous things at an international level, but obviously your interest in the inland waterway system and bringing those efficiencies to the Midwest Sounds fantastic. So is there anything else we haven't touched on that our viewers today should know, or any final comments?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand how big of a role does the waterway system have, and what impact does it have on our life? I mean, the Mississippi River system alone serves 23 different states, export, import, and a lot of other stuff. I mean, it's super critical. And I sometimes I kid around and I said, I don't know why people are doing anything else than working on the ports and the riverway system. But here's to say there's so much potential right now. And there's we live in a good time to do maritime innovation. We've seen unprecedented money and grants that's being allocated solely, especially in the US, solely for the ports community in in general, logistics and supply chain, with the infrastructure bill. So now I believe it's perfect timing, and I would be happy to interact, engage, and happy to answer any question that you may have if you're considering jumping in, because I believe that will create a better future for us all. So with that being said, thank you.
All right. Well, very good, Yuri. It's clear from today's discussion that Yuri and his colleagues at DockTech are creating innovative solutions that help to empower a range of maritime stakeholders with data insights that facilitate better, safer, and faster shipping. We see tremendous opportunity for their digital twin solution to significantly enhance operations within ports while improving the overall maritime supply chain efficiency. We wish you continued success, and thank you for joining us to provide this excellent overview. I'd also like to give a final thank you to our sponsors for FreightWeekSTL 2023. Their support makes it possible for us to deliver the great content that is the hallmark of this annual conference. Freight Week continues today with their 11 a.m. session featuring a St. Louis-based company's partnership with the Port of Long Beach and the role they are playing in helping to create a supply chain information highway. We hope you can join us and encourage you to share links to any of our Freight Week content with others who may be interested. Looking ahead to tomorrow, we will have a panel discussion featuring St. Louis Regional Ports investing for the future. We hope to see many of you there, and thank you for joining us today.